The Hardy Boys haven't done anything relevant outside of the famous TLC matches. You can close this. This is
Welcome back to Stache Club Wrestling. My name is John.
My name is Dante.
Today we have a hot one for you. Seems like we do these monthly. It's a little bit of a thing. We are reacting to your hottest wrestling takes. Again, I put out a tweet on X asking for everyone's hottest takes, and you delivered. So we're going to go over a handful of them today.
Hell yeah.
Stache Club merch, Black Friday sale. Use code SALE20. Get yourself a shirt. Get yourself a hat if you haven't already.
Come on.
CM Punk's return, if it happens, will do absolutely nothing for WWE, and it will probably end after a few months in the same way as his previous returns to AEW.
Two things.
Okay.
One, wrong. If it does happen, it will definitely do some stuff for WWE. Just viewership, numbers, t-shirt sale. Like, I understand the whole, like, CM Punk has a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, so it's only going to last a few months. It's going to end the way it did in AEW. Listen, this isn't, I'm not saying they are or anything like that, but this is the big leagues. Like, there's going to be no bullshit's going to fly here. Like, if CM Punk is on the tightest leash, that shit won't fly in WWE.
The thing with CM Punk and WWE's relationship, which might be a little different than some other relationships, is WWE doesn't need Punk.
They don't.
And
They
Punk
don't.
doesn't even need WWE. He doesn't need to come back to
He has his
wrestling.
own stuff going on.
He has his own stuff. So neither of them need each other. But I would say WWE needs CM Punk less
Then CM Punk.
You know what I mean?
needs a run where people can forget about the AEW stuff.
That
This is
too,
kind of
yeah.
his redemption run. The only two AEW World Champions that people have cared about are CM Punk and MJF.
It's a hot takes video. CM Punk is going to be mentioned within the first two.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I cared about Kenny Omega. He had a fucking amazing reign.
Even Jericho being the first reign.
Initial one. I mean, I think
John Moxley was great.
John Mox was great too. I think the only reign that is kind of like the more forgettable one is Adam Page.
Very unfortunately,
and not even
for
like
sure.
to his fault. I think it was just the way that he was booked and stuff, and it's just he wasn't as strong of a champion as a Mox, an Omega, a Jericho, a Punk, and MJF.
Household name wise, he's just unfortunately to like a more casual viewer, he doesn't have the name state of a Kenny or Jericho or Mox even, or
Exactly.
DIY needs to dethrone the Judgment Day to win the tag titles, and Gargano should be treated like the modern day Daniel Bryan for the WWE. He's that good. First of all, I think we need to stop using the word dethrone for everything.
They've only had the belts for like 4 weeks.
I don't think with Roman, dethrone works.
Gunther works, maybe.
Gunther even works, but like
everything else,
not every champion needs to be dethroned. But sure, I mean, I don't know. I don't have much to say about this. I like DIY. I think he's great. I think he's talented. WWE just isn't showcasing that or giving him much to work with. But also, we've seen people work with less and get themselves over, and it's a lot to do with WWE and creative and writing. But also, Johnny's not getting himself over with the crowd.
Yeah, I think
He hasn't had that much time to, or exposure to. But
Gargano in the ring is one of the best for sure. But I think it's just everything else, like the character. I don't think he's not the best on the mic. I think he just like that connection with fans isn't there. Like you're comparing him to Daniel Bryan. I mean, I get what you're trying to say, like similar looks, the underdog thing, whatever. But like guy. Daniel Bryan's arguably one of the best technical wrestlers to ever walk this earth. So that's kind of a hard comparison. I get what you're saying. He should be treated better, but he needs to also work on his character work for that to happen as well. It's both sides need to help themselves here.
But I think a good step here would, which I agree with, DIY with the main roster tag titles would be great.
That'd be cool.
I think it would be a good like launching point. Have them have a fun, great run. DIY versus New Day would be great, and maybe that's a launch pad for a Johnny Gargano main roster career. I don't know.
Candice LeRae might be one of the best women's wrestlers on the roster. They just won't use her. I'll be honest with you, you can say this about a handful of people that barely get used. I mean, there's just...
WWE has a stacked and talented women's roster right now.
Unfortunately, there's only an X amount of time to be showcased each week.
Sure.
Candice LeRae is fantastic. She was fantastic in NXT. Very underutilized, I agree. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. I mean, she has been getting more TV time lately. So, I mean, she is getting some eyes on her, but that's just how it is, unfortunately.
Chad Gable should get betrayed by the Alpha Academy and go on a huge singles run. Let him beat Seth for the world title for a shocking world title change, kind of like Kofi.
Wow. Well, really? I mean, you had me in the first half.
I like Alpha Academy. I want to go on record by saying I like Alpha Academy. I think it does good for everyone involved. I think it does the least good for Chad Gable. I think there is a lot more for Chad Gable outside of Alpha Academy, and kind of like what you alluded to in here, like beating Seth for a world title. I would love to see. I don't know if WWE would pull the trigger on that, but
I would love to see him win a world championship at some point. I don't think this is the time for that.
I mean, he needs the IC title. He
needs to get that first before anything. But
I think getting betrayed. Well, was Otis gonna betray him? Is Tozawa gonna? Who's gonna? Yeah. So I don't know. I think it makes more sense the other way around, because then that would turn Alpha Academy into a heel stable.
Yeah, I don't. Rey Mysterio belongs in the WWE Mount Rushmore. Without him, high flyers and the underdogs would have never gotten taken seriously in mainstream wrestling. Listen,
absolutely.
Rey Mysterio is one of the best to ever lace up a pair of boots. Things like that when it comes to Mount Rushmore's top 5 list, I believe all that stuff is subjective. Personally, he wouldn't be on my Mount Rushmore, but I understand why he'd be on people's Mount Rushmore. He's done so much for the world of wrestling, not just in WWE. That's also how I'm looking at it. Like, he did a lot in WWE too, but it's not all just in WWE.
I couldn't agree with this take more. I think there should be 4 Rey Mysterio faces on the Mount Rushmore.
With different masks.
With different masks. I like the elaboration of this without him, high flyers and underdogs wouldn't have gotten taken seriously in mainstream wrestling, because you look at like the time, let's say pre-Rey Mysterio, and I'm not going to sit here. I'm not an 80s or 90s wrestling expert. I'm sure there were smaller guys. Like you look at like an X-Pac or whatever. He was a smaller guy. And I'm sure there's other tons of examples. So I'm not going to say, I can't confidently sit here and say Rey Mysterio was the first one or was the whatever. But you look at Vince McMahon's stereotypical wrestler as a beefy big guy. It's a Hulk Hogan. It's a Lex Luger. It's a Rock. It's with the acquirement of WCW, WWE got a lot of smaller guys. You look at the SmackDown 6. You got Eddie. You got Ray. You got Kurt. I mean, Kurt's a big guy, but it's smaller,
style of wrestling.
mid-sized to smaller sized guys as compared to these giants that the WWE was in the 80s and 90s.
Even like an Edge or something like that.
Sure.
Too, honestly.
And this is all mainly for like America, the United States, because like, in Mexico and even Japan, they probably had a way more of like smaller and lucha style already.
Right.
But I feel like in WWE in the United States, they didn't. And Rey Mysterio, I think, was that first, like one of the first, if not the first, like mainstream luchador, like, guys to get to that mainstay household name in WWE.
Sure.
And then I think he really did break the mold for like younger guys, or not younger guys, smaller guys, and like, we can do this David and Goliath match, but David wins, or the landscape of wrestling in general, and especially in WWE, I think would be much different without a Rey Mysterio. Like there wouldn't be a Johnny Gargano. There wouldn't be, maybe these are not great examples, like a Johnny Gargano and Ricochet. I think there's a lot to say about like Rey Mysterio's contribution to moving away from like the giants to a more mid-size or smaller guy. Anyway, long-winded from me, but I'm glad that was. I love this take. Angelo Dawkins is a better wrestler than Montez Ford. Don't get me wrong, Ford is great and will be the one that gets pushed, but I think Dawkins is better in the ring and has a better moveset. Interesting. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and nitpick.
No, they're both very talented. They're both very different too. They have different styles of wrestling. Angelo Dawkins is the muscle, all that stuff. Montez Ford is the one touching the ceiling, doing frog splashes and stuff.
And that's just my, as I just went on my, Rey Mysterio fucking tangent. That's also just my more style that I prefer.
Exactly.
The faster, high flying,
it's more entertaining. The stunner isn't a good finisher. Brother, why? Because the guy's head just goes into the guy's shoulder and then they jump a million miles in the air. It's not, listen, the moves like the stunner, the people's elbow, all this stuff, it's more of like the look of it and the idea of it or something like that. I mean, the stunner isn't going to be as good of a move as like, I don't know, like a tombstone pile driver. It doesn't look like it has big of an impact, but like it's just more of like, it's iconic.
Yeah, even though like in practicality or, in real life, it's like, oh, that probably doesn't hurt or whatever. But it's like, it is sick looking.
It is sick looking.
I don't know how you can see a stunner and not be like, especially with the sell and like, and the whole like kick and the drop, whatever. Yeah, the idea of it definitely looks like, oh, that's going to be a devastating move. And maybe, like you said, it is kind of been built up by Stone Cold and whatever. There's a whole aura about it, but that's wrestling. I don't think you could, I think saying it isn't a good finisher. If you want to sit here and say like, oh, if you were in an actual fight and you hit someone with a stunner,
right,
it wouldn't, you wouldn't win that fight.
I mean,
sure, of course. I like it.
Come on. It's iconic.
Roman will have no choice to retire after he loses his title because the whole point of the Tribal Chief is that he holds a title, and there is no way they are turning him babyface again.
I get it. Like
know.
for now, like I understand like the story is like he's the tribal chief, he has the belt, but that's also like he loses the belt, you change things up. You give the character a different direction and stuff like that. I don't know if they'll ever officially turn him babyface again. I can see him getting to a point where like, you know, the crowd's just cheering him because he's Roman Reigns. No, I think even if he loses the belt, I think there's plenty of story to tell.
I mean, I know this like comment is saying like now at this point, but like back like when we were, you know, WrestleMania 39 talks, and even after that, we were talking like, oh, Roman should lose the belt to Cody or whatever because he doesn't need the belt to tell the story between him and Jay or him and whatever. So like, and that was only a year ago. And also, I mean, what's Roman had 3 matches this year or 7 matches or whatever the fuck the number is. The aura of Roman Reigns hasn't changed too much since WrestleMania 39. So like, I think comparing it is fair to today, but I don't know. I think especially if you lean on the tribal chief stuff, and like you were kind of saying, like he loses the title, can kind of lean more on the tribal chief stuff, and then you go with more family stuff, the story to tell about like, oh no, Jay wants to, or Jimmy wants to be the guy, or The Rock involvement. Like, you know, as much as we always talk about The Rock and Roman, that match, you can argue what's bigger, John Cena versus The Rock or Roman versus The Rock. That's a different discussion. But one of the biggest main events in history, if they do Roman versus Rock, that does not need a title.
No, it doesn't.
You know?
And we've said this plenty of times. It really doesn't.
But in terms of having no choice to retire after he loses, maybe to the point of like the tribal chiefs, he never do as good as the tribal chief story. Him losing, the tribal chief story is over. I mean, there's always rumors like he loses the title, he's going to Hollywood, and I don't know. I think if he loses the title, I think he'd still stay part-time. I think he'd take a long time off. I think he takes a break.
If he loses at Mania, I don't think we see him till SummerSlam. Orange Cassidy deserves an AEW Heavyweight Championship title run. Amen.
Absolutely. Amen. Let's go. Let's ride.
I do think that is something that should happen in the future.
I think it will.
I think it will too. I think he really proved himself with the International Championship run of how he can fare and, you know, hold his own against some of the bigger names and stuff. I don't think it's something that would happen in the near future. I definitely think it's something that they build up for. But I do think it's very possible, and I do think that has a good chance of happening one day.
Couldn't agree more. I think it'd be the ultimate like underdog baby face, like, you know,
fans will love
put him up against someone that's like no shot he beats
the most improbable champion, but he gets it done every time.
You know? And again, to be no Orange Cassidy with no Rey Mysterio, think about that. Nostalgia goggles off.
Take them off.
The spinner title is still better than the undisputed title. I like the spinner title.
I like the spinner belt too.
Sometimes I'll like go back and see pictures of people holding it, and it'll be like, you know, Randy holding it or
Triple H
holding it, Edge holding it. And then like you do look at it kind of like subjectively, and it's like, oh, it is funny that like Randy Orton is holding this like mid 2000s rap inspired like spinner fucking
like
belt,
that
you know?
Was John Cena's belt. Whenever I see the belt, I think of John Cena.
Luckily, I think it's a good looking belt. So it did look good on like a Randy or a Triple H or whatever, but it was funny to be like, oh, even like John Cena didn't have it and it still spun. I want to say maybe, I could be totally wrong, but maybe when like Cena didn't have it, they might have like locked in the spinner part. So maybe when like Randy would hold it, he would be in the ring with it spinning.
I remember when the Miz had it, they flipped it upside down, so it was the M.
But you know what I mean? That probably didn't spin. So like
I don't know.
Because like with it just like there, like centered, like not spinning, like it looks sick.
It does. It really does.
Compared to the undisputed belt.
That one's beautiful. I love that belt.
Take like the spinning part away and like pretend it doesn't spin.
It looks beautiful.
There's so much gold on it.
Diamonds
It's big.
on
It's
it.
chunky. I'm going spinner belt. I'm going. Nostalgia goggles off. I'm going spinner belt.
I think I'm picking the spinner belt too.
Hell
but
yeah,
the undisputed belt is definitely more of like a professional. Like this is a world championship.
For sure.
The spinner belt, it's just fun. Come on, what's wrong with having fun?
Shelton Benjamin had so much talent unrecognized. He could have and should have been world champion. I do think he deserved a world title run. I think he's one of the most talented and underutilized. I don't think it was unrecognized.
People knew how great he was.
I think people knew, whether you want to say backstage or fans or whatever, like I think people know and knew how talented he was. I just, for whatever reason, didn't make it past the Intercontinental Championship level.
Mid-2000s, like early, like into 2010s, like he had runs with the IC belt, United States belt, was in like almost every Money in the Bank match for a little bit. Like, no, the guy was definitely like, people knew how good he was. They just, WWE never pulled the trigger in that sense of being a world champion.
I think that's all it is.
Yeah.
Ooh,
perfect.
Good one for you. Oh, brother.
Oh, this is all right. The Hardy Boys haven't done anything relevant outside of the famous TLC matches. All right, you can close this. Jeff had a very lackluster championship reign. Matt's title reigns aren't anything to shout about. Jeff ruined his own career with his TNA stint. Both just need to retire and get their flowers.
This one's
okay.
Tough.
Let's break this down.
This one's tough.
They definitely have done relevant stuff outside the famous TLC matches. Whether Jeff had a very lackluster championship reign, the championship runs were very short. That is true, and that is they should have been longer.
But also, you look at his IC title run.
He was such a fun mid-carder.
Yeah.
Even ladder matches, just singles matches for the Intercontinental belts, the Money in the Bank matches, and also let's look outside of WWE. TNA, Matt Hardy. That was arguably Matt Hardy's greatest run when he turned into Broken Matt Hardy. That was his greatest character. Brought Jeff along. They kept TNA afloat, and even just their return to WWE at WrestleMania.
Oh my God!
The whole stuff, Jeff career TNA stint. I get what you're saying. We don't have to get into all that stuff, but like with all that stuff being considered, they both have had great careers.
I mean, the amount of tag team titles they have between the two of them that are outside. They've had tag team titles and great tag matches outside of these TLC matches. Right. Even if you want to still pair them up with like a Christian and Edge or whatever, they still had matches outside of that.
I will never ever take Jeff Hardy or Matt Hardy slander.
Jeff Hardy, the famous Jeff Hardy Undertaker ladder match. Climb the ladder, kid, or whatever. Grab
shaking his hand after. They both have had great careers.
Even
outside of the
I think Matt had solid runs with like MVP, his Bray Wyatt
run. He did the V1 with Shannon Moore. That was Matt Hardy always been better at Jeff at different characters,
like reinventing himself.
That's what reinventing himself. And also, Jeff literally gave so much to wrestling, like his body sacrificed for memory and moments like that alone.
Do I agree that maybe they obviously can't go as much as they can? I think they should be getting close to retirement for the both of them.
That
I can get behind. But to say that haven't done anything relevant outside of the TLC matches is if he didn't injure his arm, Finn Balor would have been one of the top guys in WWE and would be a multiple-time world champion, maybe Royal Rumble winner. I think I wholeheartedly agree.
Listen, I can't disagree with it because I do believe that if he didn't get hurt, he would have had however long the title run would have been.
We saw he won the title. So
he definitely would have led to a lot more stuff. Obviously, we can't look into the future and be like, if he didn't get hurt, he would have been a 10-time world champion. He would have won 3 Royal Rumbles.
Sure.
I don't know about that, but I think he would have had a much more successful singles career. I think he would have had more opportunities in the main event scene, especially in those younger years. Like, obviously, he just had a world championship match at SummerSlam and stuff, but like, it's one of those what ifs. Like, what if?
I'm glad he's in Judgment Day because he's on TV on like both shows every night or whatever.
He's definitely
which is
featured.
Great. But like, and then I see him work, and it's like you're reminded, like, he's like one of the best the company has.
He's fucking great. Yeah.
And the fact, I'm not gonna say he's stuck in Judgment Day. I don't want to say like they're holding him back. I don't think any of that. But it is funny to see how he's like kind of a mid-tier, almost background player in the Judgment Day story stuff, when he could be and arguably should be maybe closer to challenging Seth for the world title more. Or
I still think he should have beat Seth at SummerSlam.
You're right. Yeah,
I do think in the future he definitely has a world championship run, at least one in his future.
I don't want to say deserves better because again, at the end of the day, he is on TV and Judgment Day is the most prominent faction right now. Whatever. But in terms of just looking at like wrestling and people who are world champion, whatever. Yeah, I think
he did have like an 80% lose rate last year or something like that.
Jeez.
Or like there was like a year like time frame. I don't know if it was all of 2022 or mid 2022 to mid 2023, but there was a time where he wasn't getting a lot of wins.
I think we were looking at the slingshot when he won the inaugural title, and then like we were talking, he would have went on a run, but we don't know.
Roman Reigns to win that, to get to that point. They put the fucking rocket on him, dude. They really strapped him with the rocket. So,
and those are your hot takes.
That was a lot of hot takes.
Let us know your hot takes in the comments. Let us know what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. What was the hottest take? What was the coldest take?
Follow us on Twitter too, so next time we put this out, you can potentially get featured.
So true. Subscribe, hit join the Discord, yada yada yada. Stache Club merch, Black Friday sale. Use code SALE20. Get yourself a shirt, get yourself a hat if you haven't already.
Come on.
I'm looking forward to the next hot takes video. We'll see you in the next one.
Until the next one, peace.